because the more you spend time focusing on the physical reality, it's hard, and I acknowledge this, it's hard to believe that it's coming.
Hi, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast, where we interview cutting edge creative artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators who are changing the world. We also bring you tips and techniques that you can implement. This episode is brought to you by my favorite productivity hack, the Brain FM app, this podcast's hosts, Podbean, as well as my book, Speak From Within. Hey there, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I am your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you taking the time. Today's episode is going to be fabulous. I'm very excited to introduce you to this week's guest. Joel Salomon is a finance, mindful money expert and prosperity coach who helps others overcome obstacles standing in the way of their financial freedom. You know, as soon as I hear mindful and mindset, I'm all about it. So I'm very excited about that. He's an award-winning TEDx speaker, workshop facilitator, and frequent TV and podcast guest. As a former manager of a $700 million portfolio, the creator of his own successful hedge fund, and the author of 3 best-selling books, he's learned that the true foundation of wealth is a mindset of gratitude, love, and service. Joel, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Isolde, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're so sweet. This is so exciting for me because the notions of mindfulness and manifestation and looking at the mind as being something that's a lot more powerful than we tend to think it's something that's very close to my heart. So I'm super excited to talk to you about this. But I would like to sort of start a little bit with you. It seems to me you took your life and you went, I'm going to just transform what I've been doing into something else. You had a $700 million portfolio and you closed it all down to start doing this. Talk a little bit about how that happened and what brought you from where you were to where you are.
Thank you, Isolde. Great question. So, yes, I had a dream 30 years ago to be a hedge fund manager. And through some twists and turns, I eventually achieved that dream by starting a job at Citi in 2008, managing ultimately a $700 million portfolio. And then I had my own hedge fund. And in December of 2015, I went to a personal development course, and 2 things happened that completely changed my life. First, we had a guest speaker who it was a 3.5 day personal development course, and he was speaking for just an hour. And he was speaking about stocks and stock options. And when he spoke about stock options in particular, he made it sound easy. He said, you don't need much time, you don't need much money. This is how the rich people get rich, and options are essentially risk-free.
Hmm.
And I was sick to my stomach. There were 200 people in the room, and people were actually tapping me on the shoulder, whisper in my ear, Joel, does this make sense? Are options really risk-free? So after he was done, we went out of the auditorium. I explained to them, please don't do this. He has no idea about any of you individually, including your risk tolerance or earnings or tax status, and most importantly, no idea about your belief that you could become rich using options. And of course, options aren't risk-free. So that happened at that course. And the second thing that happened at that course was we were given a wooden board 2 inches thick, and we were told we were going to break it with our bare hand. I don't
Wow.
know if you've tried this, but there was a lot of fear in the room.
I believe it.
The exercise was called Obstacles Are Illusions. And on one side of the board, we had to write our biggest obstacle. And on the other side, in green, we had to write our ultimate goal,
Hmm.
which stumped me for a while. And then it finally hit me. Make everyone in this room financially free.
Mm.
And a few minutes later, I broke the board like the other 200 people in the room. I broke it, I broke through it, and I went home that night and I couldn't sleep. First, the guy was in my head. And I realized if I could ever get up the courage to speak on a stage somewhere, see, my biggest fear that day was public speaking. I
Mm.
could actually be authentic, not mislead people, and be of service. And then the second thing going on in my head at 3:30 was that wooden board staring back at me from across my bedroom. Make everyone in this room financially free. And I think it finally hit me at 4:30 in the morning. I jumped out of bed. I quickly got dressed. I was at my desk in Midtown Manhattan before the sun rose. And I sent an email to my investors telling them I'm giving them their money back. I'm shutting down my fund. I figured out my true purpose in life to help people become financially free. And this was despite the fact that I had actually generated a 10% return for the investors. We were outperforming the hedge fund index during the 4 years that I was managing money.
I'm taking a second. You'll notice I do that, Joel. Wow. Okay. So epiphany, standing at a crossroads and making the decision that how you've been serving your clients is going to transform. It's going to become something in many ways very different, and in some ways still quite similar in that you were going to be helping people figure out their own path to wealth, which I think is amazing. And I kind of want to know, you gave all the money back, and I don't know exactly what that means because I'm not sure, is it their initial investment or what? But that part is not as important to me as kind of what happened next. How do you go from I'm managing this hedge fund to I'm going to start looking for people like the people at this personal development seminar to help them? They're individuals, they're not necessarily people you knew, or maybe you did. How did that road actually form in front of you?
Another great question, Isolde. So yeah, like I said, so I gave them their money back plus the return that they had generated, 10% over the few years that I was managing the money. And it was a process. You can't shut down a hedge fund by sending an email. So my lawyer wasn't too happy. My CFO was less happy. And I did get it done in 2016. And I just started taking baby steps in the direction of my mission. When you're managing a hedge fund, you're raising money, large sums of money. And when you're a prosperity coach, teaching people one-on-one how to shift their money mindset, how to manifest money, how to invest that money, it's one by one initially. I mean, I do have a Money Miracles membership now, so lots of people can join at once. And I do courses. But back then, it was starting by teaching people one-on-one. And I started out with a meetup group. I just said, okay, I'm going to ask people questions, learn from them, see what the biggest issues are on those three topics of money mindset, money manifestation, and investing, and where is the biggest need for my services. And so I started with a meetup group, and at the time, meetups were meeting in person in
Right.
2016, 2017. And so I would just go around. We had 10, 15, 20 people at a time coming to these meetings, and I would just ask them, what's their biggest money challenge? Where are they needing help? And I got feedback and started helping them for pro bono for free in those large group meetings. And it went from there.
So, what were some of those concerns? What were some of those stumbling blocks that those folks were telling you? I don't know if you have an NDA or anything like that because we're not naming names, but what is people's biggest fear about money? What is their biggest obstacle about manifesting money?
Yeah, it was quite consistent. A lot of people have significant limiting beliefs about money. Things like, I have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful, which I will say is ask yourself when you have a thought or you're saying a word out loud or a sentence out loud, is this limiting me or empowering me? And by saying I have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful, you're saying that if I work just hard or if I work smarter and productively, I can't be rich and successful. So there are a lot of limiting beliefs around money that people have, like that, like I can't be a good soul or spiritual and rich,
Hmm.
or if I give my money away, I'll have less money. And so that was one consistent theme I found. Another was just a lack of education in general. People are not taught about money. They're not taught about how to budget. They're not taught about the fact that they can be quite successful doing it themselves if they have a basic level of education. And in my second book, The Nine Money Rules Millionaires Use, I have a 5-step stock screen. I have a 7-step real estate screen. And these things can be done in minutes, not hours or years. And it does require basic education, and that can also be done in, minutes and hours and not years. And so there's a lot of limiting beliefs around that too, in that people believe and are taught, and you probably see this every day on media, be it TV or radio or social media, that the large financial institutions are telling you you can't do it yourself. You can't be rich unless you have a quote unquote professional doing it for you. And I will tell you, the richest people in the world are doing it themselves. They've created a business, they've invested in stocks or real estate or other asset classes and done it themselves. So those were the big questions and comments and challenges I heard initially back 7 years ago. And they've continued to be consistent over the last 7 years. Those limiting beliefs, those mindset issues, and the fact that most people believe they can't do it themselves.
That's so fascinating because I literally yesterday went to open up a checking account and the person, and it's with a bank I already have accounts with, and the guy who was helping me kept going, "Oh, but we'd love to help you manage your money." And I said, "I'm self-directed. I do it all myself." And the hard sell was on because it was very much like, "Oh, but you could be doing so much more than you are if you had someone to help you." And I went, "No, I'm okay." And it was interesting to watch him from a bank do that. So I'm wondering, when someone has what you've called limiting beliefs, you probably have a process that you can take them through to break through some of those, because the guy wasn't gonna shake my belief that I'm doing it myself and I can do it myself because I've been doing it myself this whole time. But I'm sure that there are other people who'd go, "Yeah, you're probably right, I can't do it myself." So if somebody comes to you, Joel, and says, there's no way I can do it myself, what is the process you take them through to get to the point where they can break through some of those structures of belief that keep them from manifesting the life and the work that they want?
Another great question, Isolde. So we teach, I infuse infinite possibilities into everything I teach, which is a best-selling book by Mike Dooley. I'm certified to teach infinite possibilities. And one of the things we teach is how to flip those limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs. And so instead of saying, I have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful, what if you say, I can take inspired action and become rich and successful? And instead of saying, oh, you know, I can't do it myself. I'm not good in math. I don't have the time. You can say, all I need is a fifth grade math education, and I have plenty of time. I know I'm wasting an hour a day, 2 hours a day on TikTok and binging on Netflix or other social media. So let me dedicate an hour a day or half an hour a day to my financial freedom. So it's flipping those limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs, and then using affirmations, which is not new to most people, but I teach the proper way to do affirmations. It's been proven that affirmations work. Navy SEALs are using affirmations of positive self-talk. There are the most successful athletes in the world that use affirmations. And so I teach the proper way to do affirmations, saying them out loud, putting your name in them, putting them in the past or present tense. And then the other thing I teach is creative visualization. There's a powerful 6-step process that I teach on visualization. I also teach acting as if what you want to happen has already happened. What baby steps could you take to act as if you are on your way to financial freedom or you're already doing it yourself? Say you want to learn how to invest in the stock market. You could right now, today, open up a Schwab account or an E-Trade account, or just get an online brokerage account. Start the process. Dump some money, even if it's $100 or $500. So you're acting as if you're moving in the direction of your dreams. I did this a number of years ago when I created Salomon charitable giving, because what do really, really rich people do? They have foundations, they have charities. So I acted as if I was a mega rich person by creating a charity. And so it's the same sort of thing. Taking action as if you're already where you want to be is another powerful step. So those are the kinds of things we use to move from these limiting beliefs to creating the life of your dreams.
I love that you said that, and I love because I do similar with my own clients when I work with them on a different path. I do more self-actualization and creativity and working in collaboratively. However, here's something that because I'm me and I have to do definitions. English is my fourth language, so I always like knowing what people mean when they say things. You've said the phrase limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs several times. What are those exactly?
They are beliefs that are not limiting beliefs, or beliefs that are not serving you, that are holding you back from the life of your dreams. And empowering beliefs get you to move, or beliefs that get you to move towards the life of your dreams.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting because, for example, when I work with my clients, we break things down. And you mentioned, you don't have to do all of it yourself today. You can take a small step. And that's something that I work with my clients, and we do that too. We break it down into the simplest, easiest possible steps. But as long as you're progressing, as long as you're moving forward, then you're sort of working with some of those universal energies to make things manifest the way you want to.
Right.
Here's the thing though. Have you ever read Richard Bach's Illusions?
Yes.
Okay. So do you remember when he's talking to Dan and he goes, "Oh, yeah, I there's no way I'm going to be able to walk through that wall." And the thing about that to me was, yeah. And the answer he got was, well, that's because everybody accepts that walls are impermeable. We all accept that the floor is impermeable or the soil is impermeable, which is why we all agree that we're standing on it. So, talk to me about that part of it. If we're looking to change our mindsets, to use affirmations, to do these things that you're talking about, to sort of align ourselves with some of those universal energies so that these things come to pass, how do we let go of what Richard Bach was talking about in Illusions, that we all agree that the walls are impermeable, that you're not going to just walk through a wall. And our subconscious mind might be able to go, absolutely, this is just atoms, and there's space between the atoms and all of this other stuff. But our conscious mind is just not going to go, I can totally walk through this wall because I've chosen to, because it's got too much rational thought. Can you talk to me a little bit about that part of it, the part of it that we can shift our minds and shift our ability to envision and actualize these things that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think again, it's baby steps. And you get confidence when you put a small baby step into practice and it comes to fruition. And so, for example, teaching how you create your reality and thoughts become things, and a belief is just a thought you keep on thinking. And I talk about this in the 9 money rules millionaires use, because even though The Secret's been bashed because people miss the point that you have to take action, manifestation does work. And if you're putting yourself into a place of having the ability to create by taking action, then the universe will support you. So just a quick story for me about taking a baby step is that when I read The Secret, it talked about this guy who thought about this feather. And every morning he woke up, he thought about this feather. It wasn't just any old feather, it was a feather with all these etchings and carvings and colors. And every morning he thought about the feather, every night he thought about the feather, and day after day. And one day, after thinking about it for many days, he was walking down the street and he saw the feather on the ground. So after that, reading that passage, I decided that let me try. And I don't know, the first thing that popped into my head was cotton balls, pure white cotton balls. And so this was me taking a baby step to see, could this actually work for me in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And so every morning I woke up, I started thinking about cotton balls. Every night before I went to sleep, thought about cotton balls. And this was 2008, February. And in April, it got warm enough here in New York that I started going jogging with my daughters. Actually, it was a double jogging stroller and I was pushing them, but they were 2 and 4 at the time. And I
Mm.
went around this track a few times, went up this hill in this park and jogged to the park. And then I got them out of the double jogging stroller. I would push them on the swings and the slide, and then they'd get back in and I'd jog home. So it was May 31st, 2008, and I got them in the double jogging stroller. We went around the track a couple of times. We jogged up the hill, got to the playground, and I was getting them out of the double jogging stroller. And I saw all over the playground, not one, not two, but hundreds of cotton balls.
Mm.
Lauren, pick up the cotton balls. Morgan, pick up the cotton balls. That manifestation. Now, to be clear, I had to get out into the world. I had to go jogging. I had to get to that park. It wasn't just sitting at home all day in the fetal position on my bed praying. I was getting out into the world. And so that manifestation, that baby step gave me confidence that I can create. And then I put a checkup on my ceiling above my bed for 10 times more than I'd ever made in my life. And I said, I don't know how and I don't know why, but I do know it's coming. And I did that on June 1st, 2008, the very next day after the cotton balls came in. And I looked at that check every morning and every night. You may remember 2008 was not the best year on the stock market. I was managing the money for Citi at the time, but we did manage to make a little bit of money that year when the market was down 40%. And then the next year was better. And my boss called me into a conference room on January 10th of 2010 and said, Joel, you had a good year last year, and pushed a piece of paper to me, which was my bonus for 2009, which ended up being within $1,000 of the check up I had up on the ceiling for the last 18 months.
Wow, that's so cool. That's fantastic. It's funny listening to you with the cotton balls and I never read The Secret, but that same feather, the cover of Richard Bach's book Illusions has a blue feather on it because Shimoda tells Richard, "You're gonna think of a blue feather." And sure enough, Richard does, and sure enough, he sees the blue feather, I think on a milk carton or something like that. And so there is this uh the cotton balls came to you, the check came to you in part because again, you're sort of working with some of these universal energies to manifest. It's something that and it's I'm not trying to be devil's advocate, Joel. I'm just it's one of these things where somebody's listening to this and they're going, yeah, right. But you went so far as to do a talk about this, a TEDx talk about I think it was called How to Create Money Miracles. And so you obviously believe this and you live it every day. But when you're doing a TEDx talk, what are you trying to do in that 8 to 15 minutes or whatever it is, the time that you get? What were you trying to achieve? And how were you trying to bring that notion of money miracles to the people who were listening to you?
The goal of that talk was to inspire people to believe that everyone can create money miracles. Everyone can become financially free when you believe it and when you take action. And as we just talked about, taking baby steps in the direction of your dreams. And I gave examples of clients of mine that have achieved massive wealth, and even a client who was really, really struggling with just living from day to day. And she had, we worked on some individualized affirmations, and she was in a point in her life that she was really struggling and couldn't afford to feed her daughter. And she had to send her daughter back to her parents. And using specific individualized affirmations, visualization, and taking the baby steps each day, that she was able to manifest enough money so that her daughter could come back and live with her and within a year. And then last year she took a vacation, which was, if I had told her within 2 years you're going to be taking a vacation, she would have probably said I'm high. So it's it's creating the ability to have belief. I think that's that was the goal of it, was to tell people that I'm no different than you. You're no different than me. And we all have this ability to create abundance and prosperity in our life. And here's a few techniques that you can use to get there.
I love the notion of drawing abundance to you. I think that that's key and crucial. And when you work with folks, are there times when uh I guess the best way to ask this is, are there times when the people you're working with doubt what's happening, doubt the process or question the process? Or are you able to help them sort of navigate this in a way that removes doubts?
So I don't like to say always and never, all or none. And so absolutely there have been clients over the last 7 years who have had doubt, and hashtag doubt the doubt. And I know it's easier said than done. But why is the doubt? Why do you have faith in the doubt? Have faith in the dream as opposed to having faith in the doubt. So again, I believe you get what you think about most of the time. That's a quote from Earl Nightingale from like 80 years ago.
Hmm.
And so think about what you want to happen as opposed to what you don't want to happen. And just like play the game. Let's do it for 30 days. Let's just play the game and see what happens. And, try and have that kind of attitude of let's see what happens. A playful attitude is really powerful as opposed to, you know, grinding your fists together and saying, I have to make this happen. I remember when I was managing money, if I lost money 7 days in a row, I'm like, I gotta make money today. Oh my God, my investors are gonna they're gonna they're gonna take their money. And that kind of grinding my fists was not a great attitude. And so I realized after losing money 8 days in a row, I was like, okay, I'm a good money manager. I don't have to take action, massive action. I've already set up a portfolio that should make money. Let's just let it go and see. And then I started making money. So that kind of attitude, I think, is important to say, let's see what happens. Let's play with this a little bit and have that childhood curiosity and just try a technique for 30 days and see as opposed to, oh, it hasn't worked and it's not going to work. So I think that's important. When the doubts come in, even if it takes longer than 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, because I will tell you, there were some doubts that came during the 18 months when I was waiting for that mega check to come in that was on my ceiling. There were some doubts, and I had to doubt the doubt. I had to believe that, wait, you've manifested cotton balls, you can manifest money, and you're taking action. You're managing a big portfolio. The opportunity is the abundance that could come from this is almost infinite. And having that kind of attitude and belief creates the reality.
I It's interesting because there are so many philosophers who talk about this that reality is a co-creation of everybody who believes in that particular reality. And so we're talking about this stuff, and it's on some level I'm going, yay, and on some level I'm going, hmm. And that's because I feel like having it be something that is very concrete is you don't know until after it's happened, if you see what I mean. And that's something with my own clients when I'm doing my intuitive coaching. I will say, well, this is the path that I see, and I don't even know why I'm saying it sometimes because this is where my intuition has guided me to say what I'm saying. And I don't even know why I'm saying it, except for that this is what my intuition is telling me to tell you. And they go, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. And then 18 months later, they come and they say, you know how you said this was going to happen? It happened exactly the way you said it was going to happen 2 weeks ago. And so we didn't know until after the thing had happened. So the question that I have for you about that, about this notion of manifestation, is when you go back and with hindsight, with a more analytical brain, and go, okay, this is where I was manifesting things, or this is where I was in, my intention was. And then, like you said, that 18 months while you were waiting for the check, which I just love that. I'm just waiting. You were able to recognize it after, like the blue feather in illusions. I recognized the blue feather that I said that I was going to see after, or the one in secret. Can you talk a little bit about how you establish the patience and the mindset to behave as if, or live as if, while you are not as if?
Right. And I get it because you're seeing the physical reality and it's not showing you the end result.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just give you an analogy. The the GPS system in your car on your phone, the global positioning system, and you get into your car and you put the destination in. And this happened to me just a few months ago, actually. I was going to a place I'd never been before. It was only half an hour from my house. It was a commercial building. And so the first step in getting there, right, is putting your car in gear.
Mm-hmm.
So you're taking some baby step the analogy is, okay, you're taking some baby step. And so you put your car in gear and you start going. And so I'm like 2 minutes out from the place I'm gonna supposed to get to. The GPS is saying you're 2 minutes away, and I'm going to this commercial building, but I'm in a completely residential area. I only see houses as far as I can see. And I'm like, wait a second. Am I gone wrong? Maybe I put it in wrong. Maybe I got to double check. And then I said, wait a second, let's just get there. And if you get there and it's wrong, then because I'm only 2 minutes away. So I make a right, I make a left, I make another right. And then this big commercial building opens up and I'm there. And so the analogy is you may not know that you're 2 minutes away or very close to the manifestation, and then you start having doubt. But you're just really, really close. So what I teach my clients, and I know it may sound strange, but spend more time pretending.
I
Stop
love that.
focusing on the physical reality when the physical reality isn't showing you your dream, your desire, your money manifestation. Because the more you spend time focusing on the physical reality, it's hard, and I acknowledge this, it's hard to believe that it's coming. And I'll tell you, on my 18-month path from putting the check up, and there were times when, you know, I didn't actually know for sure if it was going to come from work or from another avenue, because there's an infinite number of ways that money can flow to you.
Sure.
And that's important to understand as well. But I will tell you, sometime during those 18 months, it was probably 6 months in, I remember being in the shower and all of a sudden getting this feeling of knowing that it was done. And from then on, I had no doubt. And I don't know how to explain that or get to that feeling. But Wayne Dyer said in his book, Wishes Fulfilled, make your future dream a present reality by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Make your future dream a present reality by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And I just had an absolute faith and a feeling that it was done. So think about your dream or desire, and how would you feel if you had manifested $1 million, or you're you're on a cruise in Bora Bora, or you're at the Great Pyramid of Giza, walking up the 343 steps to the king's chamber? What would it feel like? And if you can feel that feeling now and just close your eyes for a few minutes and really get into that state, that creates the reality that you want to happen quicker and sooner.
Now, I really like that you said that it's not that it's not possible. It's not that it's going to happen tomorrow. It feels like what you just said was that doing that, imagining as if, as you were talking about that, I was like, would I want to be walking up the 300 and some odd steps in the pyramid again? I could do that. Yeah. And so I went to a place where the sky was really blue and the sand around us was very sort of a light pale yellow. and there were no clouds and it was very hot. And I was going, I need water. So I got so into it that I was in that space. But I can see that even though it's not particularly something that I want for me, I don't want to go to the pyramids of Giza. But I think to me, whatever it is that you do want, there's a mindful facet of it, there's an imaginative facet of it that we can embrace to bring this to fruition. Now, when you're talking, Joel, about some of this, uh, you're talking to me actually. It's and I know you're talking to me. That's not what I mean. The things that you're saying feel both possible and make me go, hmm. And a lot of that notion that you're talking about behaving as if and envisioning and imagining and visualizing is something that I always bring back to mindfulness, that it always brings back to being aware that it's possible to do this, being aware that uh, that you can expand yourself past where you think you can. And so you mentioned that you went in from this managing this hedge fund to being this manifestation coach. Can you talk a little bit about the mindfulness aspect of it, particularly through the lens of your book, Mindful Money Management? Because I love the title, Mindful Money Management, Memoirs of a Hedge Fund Manager. So it's a memoir, but it's about being mindful with money, which I don't think many people talk about. So I'd love it if you would talk about mindfulness through the lens of managing money.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I found while I was managing my hedge fund that, for example, I had a very powerful intuitive hits. So actually, rule number two in the Nine Money Rules Millionaires Use, my second book, is trust your intuition. And I will tell you as a former hedge fund manager that if I didn't trust my intuition, I either made less money or I lost money.
Mhm.
And I know you know this as well as I do, probably better, that there are ways to develop your intuition. And somehow I was already had some great intuition, but it was also learning by doing. I had the four screens up and I was looking at hundreds of stocks at a time when I was working at Citi and had my own hedge fund. And so a stock ticker would jump out at me. And I talked about this in Mindful Money Management. And I realized I'd have to pay attention and decide, is the stock that I own already or don't own yet, is it going up or down? And start doing some analysis. And then I started seeing stock tickers on license plates. Yes, I see stock symbols in license plates. And so the same thing would happen. And one time I saw one particular stock symbol, a license plate, 10 times in one day, which the
Wow.
probability is about one in 10 trillion. So I knew I had to pay attention. It was a stock we already owned in the portfolio. And I did more research and realized the universe was telling me, pay attention, you got to own more of it. It ultimately became my largest position in 2014. And as I tell the story in the Nine Money Rules Millionaires Use, in August of 2014, it got acquired and we made 40% in one day on that stock. So intuition, I found, is quite powerful. The other thing I learned about while being a hedge fund manager was the importance of managing your thoughts, which we've already talked about, and how, if you're worried and fearful, that's worry, I say, is negative future planning. You're thinking about what you don't want to happen. So work on your thoughts. And then the other thing I talk about in the book is happiness. I literally was sad at least 50% of the time because, the greatest money managers in the world are making money half the time. I wasn't the greatest. So a little bit more than half the time, I was sad on the day I lost money and only happy if I made money. And what a terrible way to live your life. So I was conditionally happy. And this is the way I think 99.9% of the world live their life. Something in the physical reality happens, you react, and you're happy or sad, as opposed to being unconditionally happy. Create some happy habits. What thing, take like create the happiness for yourself. Take the walk in nature, play with your kids or a cat or dog, or go for a jog, or play some ping pong like I like to do, or meditate or visualize or garden and create or listen to some uplifting songs. And when you're creating your own happiness unconditionally, it's a completely different vibration that you're putting out. And I get into this a lot more in my last two books, but I talked a little bit about this in Mindful Money Management, that when I was sad, I did worse. When I was worried and sad, I did worse managing money than when I was thinking that I could make a lot of money, thinking positive and being happy. And gratitude, I talked about as well. Gratitude is probably one of the most powerful techniques to raise your frequency or vibration, because gratitude is usually you're grateful after something happens. But if you could be grateful now for what you have now, and not want more, but also want more, but just be grateful for what you have now. I talk about a gratitude journal in that book and how I started one around the time I started managing money, and just writing down some things that I was grateful for. I spent most of my life up until 2012. Right before I go to sleep, I would think about all the things that I didn't do right that day. Like, how could I have done that better? How could I have done that better? And I'm not saying it's bad to think about lessons learned, but that's not really helpful for you right before you go to sleep when you're thinking negatively about all
Right.
the things you could have done better. And so what about all the things that went well that day? Because there are things that go well every single day. And sometimes maybe there aren't, but you could still say, I got up today. The sun rose, right? I made it through the day. So even the simple things can make you feel a little bit different before you go into sleep, which is changing the vibration. And what I talk about in the last couple of books is that vibration and frequency is everything, because if you're at the highest vibration, which is gratitude and appreciation, love, joy, passion, then that's where abundance flows from. It doesn't flow from worry and fear and anger. So those are a couple of my mindful money management lessons from, being a hedge fund manager. And they're unusual. That's why the subtitle of my second book was Only the Unconventional Ones. The nine money rules millionaires use, only the unconventional ones, because I didn't talk about traditional money management techniques. I talked about, gratitude and happiness and giving and the other things we've already talked about today.
I love that that's the title, because it is unconventional. The way you're approaching this is unconventional, and I'm kind of going, and I love it. And part of why I love it is because there is room in what you're saying for imagination, for creativity, for creating in many ways your own realities. So I'm wondering, with these unconventional money rules that millionaires use, can you talk a little bit about how you figured out what the rules are, and how your own ingenuity allowed you to bring the book forward, laying all of these out?
Your reverse engineering it was back to feelings and vibration. And I realized when I was feeling better, happier, more grateful, that I made more money. And so, and then I realized how important my thoughts were. and my beliefs were to creating that. And then I also realized, we talked about intuition and these intuitive hits I would get and how powerful that was. And then when I realized that how important visualization was and thinking, going way back to 1993, when I envisioned myself being a money manager and, like a dog on a bone, I didn't want to give up on that, even though people told me, Joel, you have no money management experience. You have to go to an investment bank. You have to have 20 years of experience managing money. And I just said, no, I'm gonna figure this out. So visualization, even though I didn't know the term in 1993, I was doing it. And I have other stories about in the book about how I went in 1995, I went to London to visit a good buddy of mine who was living my dream life. He was an expat and he was in London, and we went from London, we took the channel to Paris, and he was telling us how he had already traveled to all these places. He's got another 3 more months. And I'm like, man, Ken, you're living my dream life. And I started thinking about how could this happen? And I thought about it for a while. And then 3 years later, I was living my dream life in Switzerland. And I extended it ultimately to almost a year and a half. So I guess I like to connect the dots back to how things have happened and reverse engineer, the program. And so that's how the 9 Money Rules came about. And I wanted to share this information with others. And what happened after mindful money management, which it it wasn't the full book I wanted to write. And the reason was because, and I'm sure most listeners will have this issue, is we care too much about what other people think. So I wrote this book and I didn't, as it were, fully open the kimono. And after I wrote that book, I got feedback from some people saying, I know you and I wish you'd written about this, or this has a this has a tenor of a rule book in it. Can you write a rule book for us? Because the in between the lines, I see you talking about this and mentioning this. And so that's how the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use came about, because I said, okay, I'm not going to care what other people think. I'm just going to tell it as it is. And if people don't want to hear about me seeing stock tickers on license plates, fine. But I want to tell people how intuition can be an important part in investment. And I've met a lot of very intuitive people who have become very rich using their intuition in various asset classes. So that's how I guess it all came about, if that answers your question, Isolda.
It absolutely does. So, what's interesting to me about all of this is that I play a game with myself, and the game is something akin to the blue feather that we were talking about earlier. And that is, I give myself these little quests. I'm going to see a pink VW Beetle today, and it's going to have those little eyelashes on it, right? And sure enough, I'll see one. And I will also say, I'm going to see orange tennis balls, and sure enough, I'll see them. And the reason I'm saying that is because you can build these skills. The skills of intuition are not rarefied air. If you're listening to this, you can build your skills, and someone like Joel can help you do that, particularly with money mindset. So I want to ask you, Joel, I know that you have a course coming out sometime soon that is sort of based on the rules that millionaires use. If someone says, okay, I want to know more about where all of this is and how to do it, is the course a good way to begin, or is the book a good way to begin? Can you sort of talk me through how someone who wants to change their mindset about money would begin?
Thank you for that, Isolda. So yes, I do have a 9 week course based on the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use. So every week we go through a rule and it's live. So I'm teaching I co-facilitate with a yoga and meditation teacher. She does a channeled meditation, guided meditation to start. And then I teach one of the 9 money rules each week. So that's live. It's a 9-week course that starts the end of September each year. And we go through exercises. So it's an interactive course and it's quite powerful. If for whatever reason you want to do it on your own, I also have online courses where it's not interactive at all. It's evergreen, and I've recorded videos for those as well. You can go to salomon.com. That's SALAURMOR.com, and it's either under programs or under courses, and you can self-study without, doing a 9-week course. So those are the options. Of course, I give everyone 30 minutes free of prosperity coaching in the world. So if you want to take me up on that, you can also grab time on my calendar from my homepage at salomon.com.
Thank you for that. And I will be putting those links into the show notes so that if you're listening to this, because I know people learn differently. So if you're listening to this and you want it written down, the links are going to be in the show notes. It's interesting to me, Joel, that as you and I are talking about all of this, I feel a little bit like, in many ways, what you're talking about is cultivating a healthier relationship with money. We're not taught to manage our money well. I was not even taught how to balance the checkbook when I was in school, for example. And I'm an immigrant. And so my family, coming from a communist country, had no idea about money management. And so some of this is, to me, it seems very healthy. It seems like a healthy way of dealing with your money. Can you talk a little bit about any guidance you'd give someone who wants to approach it from that perspective of developing or establishing a healthier relationship with money in general?
No, it's another great question, Isolde. So, yes, having a healthy relationship with money is critical. And you can start with baby steps. I don't want to promote any particular apps, but there are apps out there that you could start where they will round up, for if you're paying money for different things, they'll round it up and put those few cents, quarters, dimes, nickels, less than $1 into an account where like it doesn't feel hard to start saving. So that's one way to start. As I mentioned earlier, you could, start with an online brokerage account, act as if, put a few $100s in there, start with even like I have my clients uh, open up a new bank account called the Financial Freedom Bank Account. And it doesn't have to be huge amounts. Maybe it's $5 a week or something like that, $10 a week to start. And just creating that mindset, that healthier relationship, like, okay, I'm on my way. And we haven't really talked about giving, which is rule number 6 in the 9 money rules. That will really create a powerful way for you to create a healthier relationship with money. And it may sound weird, but by giving money away, if you're giving from a place from the heart, like you want to do it, there's some charity, or you want to create your own charity, or you could give to my charity, which teaches kids financial literacy. That if you're doing it from the heart, I found that when you give, the amount that you receive is multiplied 10 times. So all these kind of baby steps. I also have a budget game that I have my clients play. And so it's like, okay, because budgeting is like a 4-letter word to most people. So let's play the game. Let's make it a game. Let's see, like that same kind of child curiosity. Let's see if this works. Let's just play the game and see. I've actually had, believe it or not, a woman manifest $100,000 in 2 weeks playing this game. So it's those kinds of things. It's like, okay, and just a quick story. So last year when my TEDx talk came out, How to Create Money Miracles, I created a QR code and I was, it's a free talk. So I was just giving people the QR code wherever I went to a networking event. And I was just giving people the QR code that I printed out. And they'd ask what this is about. I tell this a little bit about the TEDx talk. And so I was giving the QR code to this woman at a networking event. And she said, "Oh, I don't need that." And I said, okay. And she said, "I don't care about money." Well, I walked away and I felt really sad for her because you have a relationship with money whether you know it or not. And think about if you're saying that to another person, "I don't care about you." Well, then it's unlikely that money's going to care about you if that's your relationship. So I would highly recommend saying, "I care about money," and not, "I don't care about money," because it's going to be hard for it to flow to you if you don't care about it.
Sure, absolutely. And it's interesting to me, there's another facet of this is that what if the person you're talking to is going through money challenges, and this person goes, "Well, I don't care about money." That is definitely not an inclusive, uplifting thing for someone who might be going through
Right.
money
Right.
challenges to hear. So that's another one of those and it's interesting because what you just talked about with charitable giving and doing it from a place of gratitude, I feel like there's something that is it's very close to my heart. I have several charities, almost all having to do with animal rescue sites or animal shelters, things like that. That's where my money goes, and that's and I and as often as possible. And I feel like it when I do that, it's fulfilling a purpose. My money is fulfilling a purpose because I've met the animals that are being cared for at these rescues and things like that. And I'm part of that. I'm part of the animal rescue network here in New York City. So I help transport animals. So I'm very much involved. When you're talking about purpose, when you're talking about feeling like you've got kind of a mission, Joel, within the giving with gratitude piece of this, can you talk a little bit about how the you feel the energies flow to go from having that purpose, whether it's charity or some other purpose, and gratitude that flows through to money coming back in?
Yeah, I think it's critical because, again, we're back to feelings, vibration, energy. And when you're grateful for the money that has come in and then you're giving it with purpose to others, like you're doing to the animal shelters, it just it creates a different kind of vibration, which is higher and consistent with abundance and prosperity. And I love the fact that you brought up purpose because my next book, which is coming out in a few months, is called Purpose and Prosperity, and I've co-written it with a purpose coach.
Mm,
And we truly believe that, and I think it's been proven as well. I think Jackie has done the research that when you're passionate about what you're doing it from, you have a purpose, you're believing in it, and it's feeling good, then the prosperity is flowing. And I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately, but when you're I'll tell a story from when I started managing money for City. And I was just like, wow, this is my dream. I'm doing my dream job. Indirectly helping City shareholders make money in 2008. And I remember one of the first few days commuting downtown to Greenwich Street in downtown Manhattan from Westchester. And you had to get in early. And so I was on the subway before 7 a.m. and looking at everyone around the subway train. And they were so angry and sad and miserable at 5, 10 minutes before 7 in the morning because they didn't want to be up. They didn't want to be going to this job that wasn't their purpose. And I'm like smiling and laughing. I'm like, I'm so excited what's going to happen today. And I finally achieved my dream. And it hit me that so many people are not doing their purpose. And that is consistent with them not being prosperous. And I remember I was talking to somebody just a few days ago. The people who are working 3 jobs, they're still living paycheck to paycheck. And they may be working, triple the hours, quadruple the hours of other people. And the reason is because none of those jobs are their purpose, most likely. They're doing it to make ends meet. So really figuring out your purpose and working to get there. And I have clients that I do help on their path to achieving their dream job. That is really fun for me because now they're doing their purpose and I know that the prosperity is on the way.
I love that. And it's interesting. I have in my pipeline, I have a book called Living on Purpose and with Purpose. And it
Mm.
is very similar, I think, except for again, not financial in nature, but this notion to me of identifying your purpose and then living every day with that as your guide, if you will, is something that a lot of us don't even know is possible, I think. And so I love that you're talking about this on these very both energetic and also practical levels. So I'm grateful that you're out there doing this because again, I come from a communist country where wealth was not ever talked about unless it was as a bad thing, and certainly prosperity also was not talked about unless it was a bad thing. So it is interesting for me to listen to you about this and kind of challenge my own preconceived notions because I can see I can identify my own resistance to what you're saying even though I don't want to resist what you're saying. So it's fascinating. It's a really fascinating wake up call to me to go, okay, what could I be doing? Because I teach mindfulness, I teach visualization techniques to my clients, but interestingly, not about money. And you've without realizing it, Joel, you've laid down a challenge for me to look at my mindset around it. So I appreciate that. I could keep you here all day. This is fascinating, but I know you have a day to get back to. So I wanted to make sure that I ask you the last two questions I ask everybody. You've already given the socials, which is part of the last three questions, but I have two questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show. If you wouldn't mind answering them, I would appreciate it. Here is the first, the penultimate question, I would say. And it is, what makes you get out of bed in the morning? And I don't mean your alarm.
My mission is to help at least 100,000 people become financially free. And that's what gets me up in the morning, even if it's jumping on a free call with one of your listeners for 30 minutes. If I can point them in the path to financial freedom, that warms my heart. That's why I get up in the morning.
I love that. That is so fabulous. And in fact, what I'll probably do is I will take the link from your website and put it in the show notes so that if somebody wants to do that, they'll be able to just go directly to making that appointment. That's awesome, Joel. Thank you. That's a great answer, especially considering how many of us are living underneath that. We're not living in the possibilities. We're living in the, oh crap, it's probably never going to happen. So being able to transform that and change it into something positive, as you've been talking about, is really wonderful and enlightening. I again, Joel, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show. This has been super great, and I am ready with my last question. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. The question is this. If you had an airplane, environmentally friendly, of course, that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
You are love.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that so much. That's awesome. Joel, yeah, that's great. Joel, once again, thank you so much for being on the show and for taking the time to talk about something that's so important to so many of us, except for that one lady who said she didn't care about money. I I am super grateful that you took the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isolde. It's been a pleasure. And like I said at the beginning, a huge honor. So thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Absolutely. If you've been listening, you know you need to go check out Joel's books and the class and think about getting a 30-minute. As you can tell, in just an hour, he's transformed my life. So go and check out what he's doing, and also make that 30-minute appointment. What do you have to lose, right? I mean, come on. It's going to be awesome. You're going to learn all sorts of techniques and things. So that's really cool. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Creative Solutions Podcast, as you well know, reminding you, as always, to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the show if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2024. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.